Hello, I'm Dr. Emily Friedman. I'm the Lyles Professor of English at Auburn University. I'm a trained 18th centuryist, book historian, digital humanist, and performance studies expert. And I put all of those together these days to study games and the people who play them and the people who watch people who play them. This semester, I'm teaching Introduction to Literary Studies in an unusual way. I believe very strongly and have devoted the last half decade and more of my life to the idea that games and recorded experiences of games are art forms that can be studied in the same ways that more traditional forms of media can be studied. This is not new, y'all. It really isn't. There's literally generations of both academic and public facing journalistic and cultural critical work that takes games as the object of serious analysis and aesthetic appreciation. My job is just to show that to new audiences who may not have encountered that before, as well as to bring the kind of media studies focus that has a longer view, which is to say, book history, to that analysis. This is the second time I'm teaching Introduction to Literary Studies, which is a fairly new sophomore level class designed to onboard students into the major. Students will have taken or passed courses to allow them to skip over 2 semesters of composition, and our students have the ability to choose either 2 semesters of a chronology focused literary studies. So, for example, British literature from uh, the beginning of time to 1789 and then 1789 to the present, or American lit, or African American lit, or world lit. You get the idea. So, this course is not bound by those kinds of period specificities or genre specificities. The idea is to get students thinking about what is literary studies? How do we do it? And I think this is the kind of thing that students think they know, especially people who want to be English majors or English education folks who want to be English teachers. But there's so much that they don't necessarily know. We need a little defamiliarization. And so, while at some places game studies might be a way to bring in students who don't think of themselves as literary scholars but are really immersed in games, what I find this class often does is use a form of art that is not especially familiar to students or is kind of the wallpaper of their existence and make them think about it seriously, often for the first time. That means introducing them to an intellectual history that is in the middle of debates about aesthetics, about appreciation, about all of the kinds of things that sometimes feel a lot more settled when we think about traditional literary forms like theater or the novel or what have you. I'm a novel historian by training, so I know that the history of the novel is more complex than that. But that's a different kind of explanation that I have to make. And so, what I find in the structure of this course, as you'll experience it with me over the next 15 weeks, is that we can move from immersive experiences of play and joyous experiences of play and ways to pay attention to those experiences of play, and then transition those observations, those close readings, into different genres of analysis by then introducing the ways in which there's all kinds of writing, scholarly and outside the academy, that is taking these things seriously, and that there's a long history of that work. And then finally, to move to an example of what has been described as creative criticism, which is to say, we end with Kieran Gillen's graphic novel, Die, which takes the stuff of scholarship as well as primary sources from the history of role playing games, including parts of the history that are not always categorized as part of that history, like the Brontes' contributions, and creates a new work of art. And that in turn is designed to get students thinking about, how do I communicate the things that I know and I've learned in ways that maybe aren't the traditional 5-paragraph essay? We certainly want students to learn how to be agile in all kinds of genres of writing and of literary analysis and of the methods. What I find through this course is that I'm trying to do the work of coming at it in a way where I can get over the kind of mental hurdles of I already know this that are often in place because English has been part of their repertoire for their whole careers. And yet, it is often very different at the college level. I'm really curious about how this revamped version of the course is going to go, and I'm really excited to share it with you. Welcome. Class is in session.